For most of human history, death was never far away. Long before hospitals, antibiotics, or even basic medical knowledge existed, our prehistoric relatives faced dangers that are difficult to imagine today. They could be attacked by enormous predators, swept away by natural disasters, murdered by members of their own group, or killed by something as ordinary as an infected tooth. Their fossilized remains preserve evidence of some of the most disturbing deaths ever discovered in prehistoric humans. Our first case may represent the oldest known murder in human history. Deep inside the Cima de los Huesos cave system in Spain, researchers discovered the skull of an early human who lived approximately 430,000 years ago. The individual is generally associated with Homo heidelbergensis, or a closely related archaic human population. Two large fractures were found on the front of the skull. At first, researchers considered the possibility that the person had fallen inside the cave and struck a sharp rock. However, both injuries were extremely similar in size, shape, and location. That made an accidental fall much less likely. Scientists also investigated whether an animal could have caused the damage, but no known predator from that place and time produced injuries matching these wounds. The fractures were far more consistent with repeated blows from a heavy stone weapon. The victim was probably struck in the head at least twice, and died shortly afterward. Because the wounds appear to have been deliberately inflicted, this skull is considered one of the earliest known examples of fatal violence between humans. Thousands of other human bones were discovered in the same cave. Researchers have proposed that the chamber may have been an early place where bodies were intentionally deposited. However, we may never know why this particular person was killed. The attack could have resulted from a conflict over food, territory, status, or relationships within the group. Whatever the motive, the discovery shows that deadly violence existed long before Homo sapiens appeared. The next death was not caused by another human, but possibly by two different predators. OH7 is one of the most famous fossils associated with Homo habilis, an early human species that lived in Africa. Homo habilis was relatively small, and some individuals may have stood only a little over 1 meter tall. In a landscape filled with powerful carnivores, these early humans were not always the hunters. Sometimes, they were the prey. Damage found on the remains has been interpreted as possible evidence of a crocodile attack. Large puncture marks on the leg suggest that a crocodile may have ambushed the individual near the water. Part of the leg appears to have been severely damaged or removed. The wetlands of prehistoric East Africa were inhabited by enormous crocodiles, including Crocodilus thorbjarnarsoni. This extinct species may have reached more than 7 meters in length and weighed approximately 2 tons. For a small Homo habilis, an encounter with such a predator would have been hopelessly unequal. However, the injuries may not have ended there. Grooves on the back of the skull have also been compared with damage caused by a large cat. This raises the disturbing possibility that the individual was attacked by a crocodile and then approached by a feline predator. It is also possible that one animal killed the victim and another scavenged the remains afterward. Fossils cannot reveal every moment of what happened. Nevertheless, the absence of healing shows that these injuries occurred around the time of death. The third case proves that not every terrible prehistoric death came from violence. Approximately 1.7 million years ago, a female Homo erectus lived in what is now Kenya. Her fossil specimen is known as KNM-ER 1808. When researchers examined her bones, they discovered abnormal layers of new bone growth and evidence of a serious, long-lasting illness. One explanation is hypervitaminosis A, a condition caused by consuming dangerously high amounts of vitamin A over an extended period. Vitamin A is essential to the human body, but excessive quantities can become toxic. Severe vitamin A poisoning may cause weakness, headaches, painful joints, skin damage, hair loss, liver problems, and abnormal bone growth. Without medical treatment, chronic poisoning can eventually become fatal. But how could an early human consume so much vitamin A? One possible source was the liver of a carnivorous animal. The livers of certain predators can contain extraordinarily high concentrations of vitamin A. Without understanding this danger, prehistoric humans may have considered the liver a valuable and nutritious meal. If this diagnosis is correct, KNM-ER 1808 suffered from the oldest known case of vitamin A toxicity identified in an early human. Her death would not have been sudden. It may have followed a long period of increasing pain, weakness, and physical deterioration. Another victim faced danger from a direction that many people would never expect: the sky. The Taung Child was a young Australopithecus africanus who lived in southern Africa roughly 2.8 million years ago. Only the skull was recovered, but it preserves unusual damage around the eye sockets and on the top of the head. Researchers noticed that these injuries closely resemble marks found on monkeys killed by modern crowned eagles. Large birds of prey often attack the face and eyes with their talons and beaks. This evidence led to the hypothesis that the Taung Child was seized and killed by a powerful prehistoric eagle. The child may have been attacked from above with almost no warning. The bird could then have carried the body to a nest or feeding location. This might explain why the rest of the skeleton was never found. Although we usually imagine early humans fearing predators hidden in grass, forests, or water, the Taung Child reminds us that danger also came from above. The next discovery may preserve evidence of a mass death event. Homo erectus was one of the most successful and long-lived human species in history. It survived for well over 1 million years and became the first known human species to spread widely beyond Africa. Some of the youngest known Homo erectus fossils come from Ngandong, on the Indonesian island of Java. The remains of more than a dozen individuals were found concentrated within the same area. They date to approximately 110,000 years ago. The fossils were discovered in river deposits, mixed with the remains of other animals. One theory suggests that a major flood carried the bodies downstream before depositing them together. A volcanic eruption may have contributed to the disaster. Volcanoes can produce lahars, fast-moving mixtures of water, mud, ash, and rock. These flows can travel enormous distances, overwhelm rivers, destroy entire landscapes, and kill almost everything in their path. It remains uncertain whether the individuals drowned during the event or died elsewhere before the flood transported their bodies. Scientists also cannot say that this single disaster caused Homo erectus to become extinct. Environmental changes, including the transformation of open woodland into tropical rainforest, probably placed long-term pressure on the remaining population. Still, these fossils may represent some of the last known members of their species, swept away and buried together during a prehistoric catastrophe. In ancient China, Homo erectus faced an even more terrifying enemy. At the Zhoukoudian cave system, famous for the fossils known as Peking Man, researchers discovered the remains of numerous Homo erectus individuals. Many of the bones were broken, crushed, or marked by powerful teeth. The suspected predator was Pachycrocuta brevirostris, an extinct giant hyena. Some individuals may have weighed more than 150 kilograms. They possessed enormous skulls, exceptionally strong jaws, and teeth capable of crushing large bones to reach the nutritious marrow inside. A large percentage of the human remains from the site display possible carnivore damage. Some bones were so badly crushed that early researchers initially wondered whether the victims had been killed and eaten by other humans. Later studies suggested a different explanation. At various times, the cave may have served as a hyena den. The animals could have dragged human bodies or body parts inside, just as modern hyenas carry prey back to their dens. Humans may have occupied the cave during other periods, explaining why stone tools were also discovered there. The site reveals an uncomfortable truth. Although Homo erectus could make tools, control fire, and hunt animals, it did not always dominate the prehistoric food chain. In some places, giant hyenas may have been the more powerful predators. The final case began with something that modern people often treat easily: an infected tooth. Turkana Boy, also known as KNMWT 15,000, is one of the most complete early human skeletons ever discovered. He was a young Homo erectus who lived in Kenya approximately 1.5 to 1.6 million years ago. Researchers found evidence of a serious dental infection. As his permanent teeth developed, abnormal contact between the teeth may have damaged the surrounding tissue. Bacteria could then have entered the wound and created an abscess. Today, a dentist might treat such an infection with drainage, dental surgery, and antibiotics. For Turkana Boy, none of those options existed. If the infection spread into his bloodstream, it could have caused sepsis. He may have suffered from intense pain, fever, swelling, weakness, confusion, and eventually organ failure. One reconstruction suggests that he became severely ill while moving through a swampy environment. Weakened and unable to continue, he may have collapsed face down in shallow water and died. His body was later buried in sediment, possibly disturbed or trampled by animals, before volcanic material helped preserve the skeleton for more than 1 million years. Some researchers have also proposed that Turkana Boy suffered from a spinal problem, possibly a severely herniated disc. Although earlier claims that he had scoliosis or dwarfism are now disputed, a serious back injury could still have limited his movement and made survival even more difficult. These discoveries reveal how dangerous prehistoric life truly was. Early humans could be murdered with stone weapons, ambushed by enormous crocodiles, carried away by giant birds, crushed by hyenas, poisoned by their food, drowned in catastrophic floods, or killed by a single infected tooth. But these fossils tell us more than how they died. They also show how vulnerable our ancestors were and how far humanity has come. Modern medicine, sanitation, shelter, and technology protect us from dangers that once meant almost certain death. An illness that can now be treated in a few days might once have ended a life. A predator displayed behind glass in a museum may once have hunted our ancient relatives. Millions of years later, their bones remain as silent witnesses to a forgotten world. A world in which humans were not always the dominant species, and survival was never guaranteed.